Christmas Day, 6:45 in the morning, and I was already 4 hours into a double shift in Denver General's emergency room. Trauma surgeon, 20 years of experience, and Christmas was always our busiest day. Heart attacks, car accidents, family fights that turned violent. The holiday cheer had a dark side that most people never saw. My daughter Emma was supposed to spend the day at my parents' house in Cherry Creek, their annual Christmas celebration with my sister's family, cousins, the whole extended clan. Emma was 16, mature enough to drive herself there, and I'd confirmed with my mother 3 times that she was expected, that there was a place set for her, that my working the holiday wouldn't mean my daughter spent Christmas alone. At 7:18 a.m., my phone buzzed during a rare quiet moment. Text from Emma. "Mom, they said there's no room at the table for me. Grandma says the seating is already arranged and I should just go home." I'm sitting in the driveway. What do? I read it twice, my hands starting to shake under my surgical gloves. No room at the table. My parents' dining room sat 14 people comfortably, 16 if they used the extension. My sister had 3 kids. That made 5 people in her family, 2 parents, so 7 total, not counting Emma. There was room. There had always been room. They just didn't want to make room for my daughter. I called Emma immediately, stepping into the supply closet for privacy. "Sweetheart, go home," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'll be done by 8 tonight. We'll have our own Christmas, just us." I could hear her crying softly. "It's okay, Mom. I know you have to work. I'll be fine." She drove home to our empty house in Highlands Ranch, 30 minutes from Cherry Creek, and spent Christmas Day alone while my parents hosted a celebration for everyone except her. I worked my shift, saved 3 lives that day, and planned exactly what I was going to do about a family that had just crossed a line they couldn't uncross. My name is Dr. Sarah Mitchell, and this is the story of how my family excluded my daughter on Christmas, and how I made absolutely certain they understood the consequences of that choice. Understanding what happened that Christmas requires understanding my family, the dynamics that had been building for 16 years, and the careful way my parents had constructed a narrative where my daughter was somehow less deserving of their love than my sister's children. I'm the oldest of 2 daughters. My sister Rebecca is 3 years younger, married to a corporate attorney named David, mother to 3 kids ranging from ages 8 to 14. Rebecca and I grew up in the same house, attended the same schools, had the same opportunities. But somewhere along the way, our paths diverged in ways that created a rift my parents never acknowledged but always reinforced. I went to medical school, became a trauma surgeon, married another doctor who died in a car accident when Emma was 2. Single mother, demanding career, raising a child while working 80-hour weeks. Rebecca married right after college, became a stay-at-home mother, lived 2 miles from our parents in Cherry Creek, and maintained the kind of constant presence that made her family the default, the standard, the center of every holiday and celebration. My parents, Richard and Patricia Mitchell, were both retired executives, comfortable in their wealth, proud of their country club membership, and their carefully curated social circle. They loved Rebecca's life, the traditional family structure, the grandchildren who were always available for impromptu visits, the son-in-law who played golf with my father. They tolerated my life, the chaos of emergency room schedules, the single parenthood, the daughter who'd chosen career over traditional family structures. And Emma, my brilliant, sensitive, kind daughter, somehow became collateral damage in their preference for Rebecca's family over mine. It started small when Emma was young. Birthday parties where Rebecca's kids got elaborate celebrations, and Emma got dinner at a restaurant. Christmas gifts, where her cousins received expensive electronics, and Emma got books and clothes. Comments from my mother about how hard it must be for Emma growing up without a father, without siblings, without the stability Rebecca's children enjoyed. I addressed it every time, had conversations with my parents about equal treatment, about making Emma feel included and valued. They always apologized, claimed they hadn't realized, promised to do better. Then they'd do the same thing again. By the time Emma was a teenager, the pattern was clear. Rebecca's family was the golden family, included in every decision, consulted about every plan. Emma and I were the afterthought family, invited because exclusion would be too obvious, but never quite fully welcomed. Emma noticed, of course she did. She was a perceptive kid, made straight A's, played violin, volunteered at the animal shelter. She asked me once when she was 13 why Grandma and Grandpa seemed to like her cousins better. I told her they loved her just as much, that families were complicated, that sometimes adults didn't realize how their actions affected children. I'd believed my own words, or wanted to. The warning signs were there in the months before that Christmas. In October, my parents hosted a big dinner for Rebecca's oldest daughter's 14th birthday. They'd rented out a private room at an upscale restaurant, invited 20 people. Emma wasn't invited. When I asked my mother about it, she said it was just for Madison's close family and friends. Emma's her cousin, I'd pointed out. They're close. My mother had that tone, the one that said I was being difficult. Sarah, Rebecca wanted to keep it intimate. You know how these things are. In November, my parents took Rebecca's family on a ski trip to Aspen. 5 days, luxury resort, my father's treat for his grandchildren. Emma wasn't invited. When I confronted my father about it, he said the condo only had space for Rebecca's family, that they'd planned it specifically as time with David and the kids. Emma could come on the next trip, he'd assured me. There wasn't a next trip. 2 weeks before Christmas, I'd called my mother to confirm plans. Emma and I would both be there Christmas Day, right? Of course, my mother had said. Well, you're working, but Emma is absolutely coming. We'll pick her up if you need us to. No, she can drive herself, I'd said. She just got her license. She's excited to drive to Cherry Creek. Just make sure there's a place for her. Sarah, don't be ridiculous, my mother had snapped. She's our granddaughter. Of course there's a place for her. But when Christmas morning came, when Emma arrived at my parents' house in Cherry Creek at 9:30 as planned, my mother opened the door and told her there wasn't room. According to what Emma told me later, crying in our living room while I held her, this is what happened. She'd rung the doorbell, excited because she'd wrapped presents for everyone, had gotten her cousins books she thought they'd love. My mother answered, looked surprised to see her, and said, "Emma, honey, what are you doing here?" "I'm here for Christmas," Emma had said, confused. "You told Mom I was coming." My mother had glanced back into the house, then stepped onto the porch, pulling the door mostly closed behind her. "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry, but we just don't have room today. Rebecca's family is here, and David's parents joined us last minute, and the table is completely full. We can't fit another person." "But you knew I was coming," Emma had said, and I knew my daughter, knew she would have said it politely, even as her heart was breaking. "Grandma, you told my mom there was a place for me." My mother, the woman who'd raised me, who'd held Emma as a baby, who'd claimed to love her granddaughter, had actually said this. "I know, honey, but things change. Your mom understands. She's flexible. You're 16. You're old enough to spend a day by yourself. Why don't you go home, watch some movies, and we'll see you another time." Emma, to her credit, hadn't made a scene. She'd gotten back in her car with her bag of presents, driven home, and texted me from our driveway. The message that had made my blood run cold, even in the middle of a trauma bay. No room at the table, as if my daughter was an unexpected guest, an inconvenience, someone who could be dismissed because her mother was at work and couldn't advocate for her. I worked my entire shift, 12 hours of car accidents and heart attacks, and one 5-year-old who choked on a toy and needed emergency intervention. I saved lives that day, did the work I'd trained 20 years to do, and the entire time I was planning what I would say to my parents. But words weren't enough, I realized somewhere around hour 9. Words hadn't worked before. Conversations, confrontations, direct requests for equal treatment, none of it had changed their behavior. They needed to understand consequences, not just hear criticism. I got home at 8:15 p.m. Emma had made herself dinner, was curled up on the couch watching old movies, still in her Christmas dress. She'd put the presents she'd wrapped for the family in the corner by our tree. She smiled when I came in, trying to be brave. "Did you save anybody today, Mom?" "3 people," I said, sitting next to her and pulling her into a hug. 3 people who get to see another Christmas because of our team. That's worth missing the day, right? She nodded against my shoulder. "I'm sorry Grandma didn't have room for me. I know you confirmed it." "It's okay." "I'm not," I said quietly. "I'm not okay with it, and I'm not going to pretend I am." "What are you going to do?" Emma asked. "Whatever I have to," I said. I spent Christmas evening writing a letter, not an angry rant, not an emotional outburst, but a clear, detailed, factual accounting of my parents' behavior toward Emma, the pattern of exclusion, and the consequences I was implementing. I printed it on professional letterhead from the hospital, signed it, sealed it in an envelope. The next morning, December 26th at 6 a.m., I drove to my parents' house in Cherry Creek. Their driveway still had cars. Rebecca's family had stayed overnight, apparently, the whole extended family together for a Christmas that hadn't included my daughter. I didn't ring the doorbell. I left the envelope tucked into the wreath on their front door, weighted down so it wouldn't blow away, impossible to miss. Then I drove home, made Emma her favorite breakfast, and waited. The letter said this: "Mom and Dad, yesterday you told Emma there was no room for her at your Christmas table. I want to make sure I understand the situation correctly. Your dining room seats 14 people comfortably, 16 with the extension you've used for years. Rebecca's family is 5 people. You and Dad make 7. David's parents, if they truly joined last minute, make 9. That leaves space for 5 more people at a table that has never been too crowded to accommodate family. So, when you said there was no room, what you meant was you chose not to make room. You chose to prioritize everyone else's comfort over my daughter's inclusion. You chose to send her home alone on Christmas rather than adjust your seating arrangements. This is not the first time you've excluded Emma. It's not even the 10th time. I've addressed this pattern with you repeatedly. I've asked for equal treatment. I've pointed out the favoritism you show toward Rebecca's children. Every time you apologize and claim ignorance, then continue the same behavior. I'm done asking for change. I'm implementing consequences instead. Effective immediately, you no longer have unsupervised access to Emma. If you want to see her, it will be on my terms, at my house, and only if you explicitly apologize to her for yesterday and demonstrate through actions, not words, that you value her as much as your other grandchildren. You are not invited to her upcoming violin recital in February. You are not welcome at her junior prom photos in April. You will not be attending her high school graduation next year unless you repair this relationship in meaningful, sustained ways. I'm not doing this to punish you, though you deserve punishment. I'm doing this to protect my daughter from people who have repeatedly shown her she matters less than her cousins. Emma is 16 years old. She's kind, intelligent, talented, and deserving of grandparents who treat her with love and respect. If you can't be those grandparents, then you don't get to be grandparents at all. I've spent years trying to make you understand through conversation. Yesterday you showed me conversations don't work, so now you get consequences. I hope you think sending Emma home alone on Christmas was worth losing access to your granddaughter, because that's exactly what you've done. Sarah. I attached to the letter a printed timeline I'd created, dates and descriptions of every incident of exclusion or favoritism I could document from the past 5 years. Madison's birthday party, Emma wasn't invited to. The Aspen trip, Emma wasn't included in. Christmases where gift values were drastically different. Comments my parents had made that minimized Emma's achievements or compared her unfavorably to her cousins. 16 pages of documentation, factual and dated, a legal professional's approach to proving a pattern. If they wanted to claim this was an overreaction, they'd have to explain away years of behavior. My phone started ringing at 8:30 a.m. My mother calling from what was probably their bedroom so Rebecca wouldn't hear. I let it go to voicemail. She called 4 more times. Then my father called 3 times in a row. I didn't answer. Rebecca called at 9:15. Sarah, what the hell did you do? Mom is hysterical. She says you left some insane letter accusing them of abuse. I didn't accuse them of abuse, I said calmly. I documented their exclusion of Emma and informed them of boundaries going forward. Rebecca, they sent her home alone on Christmas. She drove to their house like they told her to, and they turned her away at the door. Were you there? Did you know? There was a pause. I knew David's parents joined us last minute. Mom said Emma wasn't coming. She said you told her Emma had other plans. I never said that, I replied. Mom told Emma there was no room at a table that had plenty of space. She prioritized David's parents over her own granddaughter. And you all let it happen. I didn't know Emma was planning to come, Rebecca said, defensive now. If I'd known, I would have made sure there was space. Would you? Because you've been at plenty of events where Emma was excluded or treated as lesser. You've watched Mom and Dad favor your kids for years. You benefit from it, so you don't question it. That's not fair, Rebecca started. It's completely fair, I interrupted. Your kids got a ski trip. Emma didn't. Your daughter got a birthday party. Emma didn't. Yesterday, your family got Christmas. Emma got sent home. If you can't see the pattern, you're choosing not to see it. You need to apologize to Mom and Dad, Rebecca said. They're devastated. Good, I said. Emma was devastated yesterday, alone in an empty house on Christmas, because her grandparents couldn't be bothered to set an extra place. Maybe they should feel what that's like. I hung up. My mother showed up at my house at 11 a.m., just as I'd known she would. Confrontation avoidance had never been her style. She rang the doorbell insistently until I answered. Emma was upstairs in her room, door closed, and I'd told her to stay there. We need to talk, my mother said, her face red and tear-stained. No, I said. We've talked for 16 years. It hasn't helped, but you're going to listen. I stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind me. My mother launched into her defense. It was a misunderstanding, she insisted. She'd thought I'd told Emma not to come since I was working. She hadn't realized Emma was planning to drive herself. The seating was genuinely tight with David's parents there. She'd panicked and handled it badly. None of that is true, I said. You confirmed with me 3 times that Emma was coming. You knew exactly what you were doing when you turned her away. You chose to protect your comfortable Christmas rather than include your granddaughter. I made a mistake, my mother said. I'm sorry. Are you? Because you've made this exact mistake before, and every time you apologize and then do it again. So either you're lying about being sorry, or you're incapable of changing your behavior. Either way, the result is the same. Emma gets hurt. Not anymore, I continued. You don't get to hurt her anymore. The boundaries I outlined in my letter stand. You want access to Emma? You start by apologizing to her directly, not to me. You explain what you did wrong and why it was wrong. Then you demonstrate through actions that you value her equally to Rebecca's kids. My mother's expression shifted from apologetic to angry. You're being dramatic, she said. Emma is fine. She's 16, not 6. She can handle one disappointing day. She shouldn't have to, I said. She shouldn't have to handle being excluded by her grandparents. She shouldn't have to build resilience against family rejection. The fact that you think she should tells me everything I need to know about your priorities. I'll lose my relationship with my granddaughter over this, my mother said, and it sounded like a threat. Yes, I agreed. You will, because I'm not going to keep giving you opportunities to hurt her. You had 16 years to treat her right. You chose not to. Now you live with that choice. My mother left without apologizing to Emma. My father called that evening, tried a different approach. Sarah, you're overreacting, he said in his executive voice, the one he'd used in boardrooms to shut down dissent. Christmas dinner was complicated. Your mother handled it poorly. But this letter, these boundaries, You're tearing the family apart. The family tore itself apart when you sent Emma home, I replied. I'm just making the damage visible. We'll make it up to her, my father promised. We'll do something special, just Emma, a day out, whatever she wants. Too little, too late, I said. You should have made it up to her on Christmas. You should have made room. You should have treated her like she mattered, but you didn't. The call ended badly. Over the next week, my parents tried every manipulation tactic in their repertoire. My mother cried to mutual family friends about how I was keeping her from her granddaughter over a simple misunderstanding. My father implied to his golf buddies that I was being vindictive and using Emma as a weapon. Rebecca posted on social media about the importance of family forgiveness and grace, obviously directed at me. I held firm. Emma, watching all of this unfold, asked me one night if I was sure this was necessary. Mom, maybe it was just a mistake. Maybe we should give them another chance. Sweetheart, I said gently, I've given them chances for 16 years. How many times should you have to be hurt before I protect you? She didn't have an answer, but I saw the relief in her eyes, the validation that what had happened wasn't okay, that someone was finally standing up for her. In January, my parents sent Emma an elaborate gift, a new laptop with a note saying they loved her and wanted to see her. She brought it to me, uncertain. It's a nice gift, she said. Does this mean they understand? It means they think they can buy their way past consequences, I replied. Do you want to keep it? Emma thought for a moment, then shook her head. I want an apology more than a laptop. We returned it. In February, Emma had her violin recital. She'd been practicing for months, had a solo performance that was genuinely impressive. I told my parents they weren't invited, and I'd meant it. They showed up anyway, sat in the back of the auditorium. After Emma's performance, my mother tried to approach her. Emma looked at me. I nodded, staying close. Grandma, Emma said quietly, I need you to leave. You weren't invited? My mother looked shocked. Emma, honey, I just wanted to see you play. You're so talented. You didn't make room for me at Christmas, Emma said, her voice steady, despite tears in her eyes. So I'm not making room for you here. Please leave. The look on my mother's face, the realization that Emma herself was enforcing boundaries, not just me imposing them, was worth every uncomfortable moment. They left. But something else happened that night, something I hadn't anticipated. Several other parents approached me after the recital, people I knew casually from school events. One mother, Janet Reynolds, pulled me aside. I overheard what just happened with your parents, she said quietly. I want you to know you're doing the right thing. My parents treated my sister the same way, favored her kids over mine for years. I tried to keep the peace, make excuses, protect the relationship. It never got better. My kids are adults now, and they have nothing to do with their grandparents. They grew up knowing they were less valued, and it damaged them. You're protecting Emma from that damage. I'm trying, I said. It's harder than I expected. Standing up to family always is, Janet replied. But you're teaching Emma that she deserves to be treated with respect. That's worth more than any relationship with grandparents who can't provide that respect. The validation from another parent who'd lived this, who'd seen the long-term effects of family favoritism, strengthened my resolve. In March, Rebecca called me, not to argue, but to talk, really talk. Sarah, I need to tell you something, she said, her voice strained. I've been thinking about what you said at Christmas, about me benefiting from Mom and Dad's favoritism. You were right. I knew. I knew they treated Emma differently. I knew they excluded her. And I let it happen because it was easier than confronting them, because my kids were the favorites, and that felt good. I'm sorry. It's not me you need to apologize to, I said. Rebecca, I know, she interrupted. I'm going to talk to Emma. But I wanted to tell you first. I've also been talking to Mom and Dad, trying to make them understand. It's not going well. What are they saying? I asked. That you're being unreasonable, that they've tried to apologize, that you won't let them see Emma no matter what they do," Rebecca said. "But Sarah, they haven't really tried. They sent a gift. They showed up at her recital uninvited. They've complained to everyone who'll listen, but they haven't done the one thing you asked. They haven't genuinely apologized to Emma and acknowledged what they did wrong." "Exactly," I said, "because they don't think they did anything wrong. They think Christmas was an unfortunate misunderstanding, not a choice they made. Until they acknowledge the choice, there's nothing to rebuild." Rebecca was quiet for a moment. "I'm going to do better," she said finally. "I'm going to make sure my kids understand that Emma is their cousin and deserves to be included. I'm going to push back when Mom and Dad exclude her. I should have done it years ago." "I appreciate that," I said, meaning it. "Emma needs family who value her. If you can be that, it matters. But Rebecca, I also need you to understand. Even if Mom and Dad never change, even if we never have another family Christmas together, I'm okay with that. Emma's well-being matters more than family unity." "I understand," Rebecca said. "And for what it's worth, I think you're an amazing mother." One more thing happened in those early months, something that convinced me I'd made the right choice. Emma came home from school one day in April with a permission slip for a college prep program at University of Colorado Boulder, a summer intensive for high school juniors interested in STEM fields. It cost $3,000. In the past, I would have asked my parents to contribute, and they would have, probably with some comment about how Rebecca's kids were in similar programs they'd fully funded. This time, I didn't ask. Emma and I discussed it, looked at our budget, and I paid for it myself. When Emma realized I hadn't involved my parents, she hugged me. "Thank you for not asking them," she said. "I don't want to owe them anything." "You don't owe them anything," I confirmed. "You never did. This investment is because you're brilliant and hardworking, not because anyone's doing us a favor." She smiled, and I saw independence growing in her, confidence that she was valued for who she was, not for how convenient or comfortable she made others feel. The boundaries I'd set weren't just protecting her from hurt. They were teaching her that she deserved better. But the real test came in June at a family wedding. The wedding invitation arrived in May, elaborate cardstock announcing the marriage of my cousin Daniel to his fiancée Amanda in late June. Daniel was my father's brother's son, someone I'd grown up with and maintained a friendly relationship with despite the family drama. The invitation included Emma by name, Miss Emma Mitchell, with a +1 if she wanted to bring a date. It was the kind of formal inclusion that made clear she was wanted, expected, valued as family. The reception location was listed as the Cherry Creek Country Club, the same venue where my parents were members, where they'd hosted countless family events. I knew immediately this would be the test, the first major family gathering since Christmas, where we'd all be in the same space. "I need to know if you want to go," I told Emma when we discussed it. "This is your choice, not mine. If you're not ready to be around Grandma and Grandpa, we don't go." "I want to go," Emma said after thinking about it. "Daniel's always been nice to me, and Mom, I need to see if I can handle being around them. I can't avoid family forever." "You're not avoiding them," I corrected. "You're protecting yourself. There's a difference. But if you want to go, we'll go. Together." I RSVP'd for both of us, sent a generous gift, and prepared Emma for what would probably be an uncomfortable evening. "My parents will likely try to talk to you," I said. "They'll probably act like nothing happened, like we're all just family coming together for a celebration. You don't have to engage if you don't want to." "I know," Emma said. "I've been thinking about it. If they actually apologize, if they acknowledge what they did was wrong, I think I want to hear it. But if they just pretend everything's fine, I'm going to walk away." "That's exactly right," I confirmed. "You set the terms of your relationships now. You're old enough to decide who deserves your time and energy." The week before the wedding, my mother called. I'd maintained minimal contact since Christmas, responding only to logistics about family matters, never engaging in personal conversation. Sarah, she said without preamble, I know you and Emma are coming to Daniel's wedding. I'd like to talk to her that night. Actually apologize properly. Will you let me? That's Emma's decision, I said. If she wants to talk to you, she will. But Mom, understand this. If you approach her and it's more manipulation, more excuses, more making yourself the victim, I will intervene. I'm not letting you hurt her again. I'm not trying to hurt her, my mother said, and for the first time in months, she sounded genuinely tired rather than defensive. I've been thinking about what happened, about all of it, not just Christmas. Rebecca's been talking to me. She told me things I didn't want to hear. What things, I asked, that I've been favoring her kids for years, that I've treated Emma like she was less important, that I chose Rebecca's family because they were easier, more available, more traditional. Rebecca said I robbed Emma of a grandmother who actually knew her, and I robbed myself of knowing an incredible granddaughter. Is she right? I asked quietly. My mother was silent for a long moment. Yes, she said finally. She's right. I don't know when it started or why I let it continue. I told myself it wasn't favoritism, just practicality. Rebecca was always there, her kids were always available, you were always working. But that's not Emma's fault. It was never her fault. No, I agreed. It wasn't. I'm not asking you to forgive me, my mother continued. I'm not even sure I deserve forgiveness. But I want to try to do better, if Emma will let me. I want to know my granddaughter, Sarah, really know her, before it's too late. Tell her that, I said, not me, her. If you mean it, tell Emma directly. I will, my mother promised, at the wedding if she'll talk to me. The wedding was beautiful, elegant ceremony followed by a reception that showcased exactly the kind of wealth and tradition my parents' world valued. Emma wore a dress we'd picked out together, sophisticated and age-appropriate, and she looked so grown up it made my heart ache. We arrived together, checked in at the reception table where name cards directed us to table 12, far enough from the family table to avoid forced interaction, but close enough to participate in the celebration. I saw my parents immediately, seated at table 3 with Rebecca's family, my father in an expensive suit, my mother in a designer dress. They saw us too. My mother's expression was complicated, hope and fear, and something that might have been shame. My father just looked uncomfortable. Emma and I made our rounds, greeting family members, congratulating Daniel and Amanda. Several relatives commented on how grown up Emma had gotten, how beautiful she looked, asked about school and her plans for college. Normal family conversation, the kind Emma deserved to have at every gathering. Dinner was served, speeches were made. Daniel's father, my Uncle Tom, gave a toast about family and love and the importance of supporting the people who mattered most. He looked directly at me when he said it, a subtle acknowledgement that he knew what had happened at Christmas, that he supported the boundaries I'd set. My uncle had always been the reasonable one. The dance floor opened after dinner. Emma danced with Daniel, with some of her cousins from my uncle's side of the family, with me during a mother-daughter dance that made several relatives tear up. She was having fun, genuinely enjoying herself, and I felt the tension I'd been carrying start to ease. Then my mother approached during a slow song, catching Emma near the refreshment table where I stood a few feet away. "Emma," my mother said quietly, "can we talk? Please?" Emma looked at me. I nodded slightly, staying close but giving them space. "Okay," Emma said, her voice steady despite nervousness. My mother led her to a quieter corner of the reception hall, away from the dance floor but still visible. I watched, ready to intervene if needed. I couldn't hear what my mother was saying, but I could see Emma's face, the way she listened intently, the tears that started falling halfway through the conversation. My mother was crying too, talking with her hands in that way she did when she was being earnest rather than performative. The conversation lasted maybe 10 minutes. Then my mother said something and Emma nodded and they hugged, a real embrace that lasted long enough that I knew something had shifted. Emma came back to me while my mother retreated to her table, both of them wiping tears. "What did she say?" I asked quietly. "She apologized," Emma said. "Really apologized. She said she'd been thinking about all the time she excluded me, all the ways she showed she cared more about Rebecca's kids than me. She said it was wrong, that she didn't have good excuses, that she'd been selfish and thoughtless. She said she understood why you set boundaries and that she deserved them." "How do you feel?" I asked. "I feel like maybe she finally gets it," Emma said. "Like this wasn't just about pacifying you or getting access back. It felt real, Mom. She told me she wants to try to build a real relationship with me, not just see me at holidays. She asked if she could take me to lunch sometime, just the two of us." "Do you want that?" I asked. "I think so," Emma said. "Not right away. I'm not ready to just forget everything. But maybe eventually, if she really changes, not just says she will." "That's wise," I confirmed. "Words are easy. Actions are what matter." My father approached next, less comfortable than my mother had been, but clearly determined. "Sarah," he said formally, "may I have a word?" We stepped away from Emma, and my father struggled to make eye contact. "I owe you an apology," he said, "to you and to Emma. I let your mother make decisions about family gatherings without questioning whether they were fair. I told myself it wasn't my responsibility to monitor grandparent relationships, but it was my responsibility. I'm Emma's grandfather. I should have noticed she was being excluded. I should have stood up for her." "Yes," I said, "you should have." "I'm sorry I didn't," my father continued. "I'd like the chance to do better, if you'll allow it." "That's up to Emma," I said, "not me. If she wants a relationship with you, I won't stand in the way. But Dad, understand this. I'm not lowering the boundaries I set. If you slip back into old patterns, if Emma gets hurt again, we're done. There won't be another chance." "I understand," my father said. "And Sarah, for what it's worth, I'm proud of you, for standing up for your daughter even when it meant standing against family." That took courage. "Thank you," I said, surprised by the acknowledgement. Rebecca found me later in the evening, pulling me aside near the venue's terrace. "I saw Mom and Dad talking to Emma," she said. "How did it go?" "Better than I expected," I admitted. "They actually apologized, genuinely, from what Emma said." "Good," Rebecca said. "I've been working on them for months, trying to make them see what they did. It wasn't easy. They're not used to being held accountable." "Thank you," I said. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," Rebecca replied. "I should have done it years ago. Sarah, I've been thinking a lot about how I benefited from their favoritism. How my kids got advantages Emma didn't. How I stayed silent because speaking up would have made my life harder. I'm ashamed of that." She paused, then continued, "I want to do something for Emma, not to make up for what happened, because I can't undo that, but to show her she matters to this side of the family, too." "What did you have in mind?" I asked. "Emma's college applications are coming up next year, right?" Rebecca asked. I nodded. "I want to set up an education fund for her," Rebecca said. $50,000 from David and me. Not from Mom and Dad, not as a family thing. From us specifically, because she's our niece, and we value her. I want her to know she has family support that isn't conditional." "Rebecca, that's incredibly generous," I said, genuinely moved. "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to," Rebecca said. "I want to. My kids have college funds from Mom and Dad, from David's parents, from us. Emma should have the same. And Sarah, I'm going to do more. I'm going to make sure my kids include Emma. Real inclusion, not just token invitations. Madison's having a birthday party in August. Emma's invited, and I'm making sure Madison knows she's expected to actually include her cousin, not just tolerate her presence." "You're doing the work," I said. "That's what matters." "I'm trying," Rebecca replied. "Better late than never, right?" "Better late than never," I agreed. The rest of the evening was surprisingly pleasant. Emma danced, laughed, took photos with cousins she hadn't seen in months. My parents kept their distance after their initial apologies, respecting Emma's space while making it clear through small gestures that they were paying attention. My mother made sure Emma got a piece of the special dessert she liked. My father complimented her dress and asked about her summer plans. Small things, but consistent, visible effort. Driving home that night, Emma was quiet, processing. "That was better than I expected," she said finally. "Me too," I agreed. "Do you think they've really changed?" Emma asked. "Or is this just temporary because we're at a public event?" "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "Change takes time to prove. But Emma, here's what I do know. Even if they change, even if they become the grandparents you deserve, the boundaries we set were still right. Because you deserved to be protected. You deserved someone standing up for you. I don't regret that." "I don't either," Emma said. "Even though it was hard, even though the family was upset. I'm glad you didn't just let it go." Over the following months, my parents did something I hadn't fully expected. They followed through. In July, my mother took Emma to lunch, just the two of them. Emma came home and told me they'd talked for 3 hours, actually talked, about Emma's interests and goals and thoughts. My mother had asked questions and listened to answers, engaged like she genuinely wanted to know her granddaughter. In August, my father invited Emma to help him with a project, building bookshelves for her room. They spent a weekend in our garage, measuring and cutting and assembling, the kind of hands-on time my father had given to Rebecca's kids regularly, but had never offered to Emma. She'd come inside covered in sawdust, grinning. "Grandpa's actually pretty funny when he's not being formal," she told me. "We talked about college and career stuff. He gave me really good advice." In September, when Emma started her senior year of high school, my parents showed up to her first violin concert of the season. This time, they were invited. They sat with me, watched Emma perform, and afterward my mother hugged her and told her how proud she was. No caveats, no comparisons to other grandchildren, just genuine pride in Emma's accomplishment. The boundaries I'd set remained in place, but they shifted from walls keeping my parents out to guardrails keeping relationships healthy. I didn't go back to assuming the best. I watched carefully, paid attention to patterns, stayed ready to intervene if exclusion or favoritism reemerged. Rebecca kept her promise too. Emma was included in family events with Rebecca's kids, not as an afterthought, but as an expected participant. Madison's birthday party in August had included Emma in the planning, asking her opinion on activities and treating her like the cousin she'd always been. Rebecca's youngest, Tyler, started asking when Emma was coming over to play video games with him. Real relationships built on actual connection rather than obligation. In October, a year after the boundaries were set, my mother asked if we could all have dinner together. Not a big family gathering, just my parents, Emma, and me. Neutral restaurant, casual atmosphere, a chance to talk. I agreed, with Emma's permission. At dinner, my father cleared his throat and said something I'd never expected to hear. "We owe you an explanation," he said, looking at both Emma and me. "Not an excuse, because there isn't one good enough, but an explanation for how we let things get so bad." "I'm listening," I said. "Your mother and I," my father continued, "we fell into a pattern with Rebecca's family. They were always available, always nearby, always easy. You, Sarah, were always working, always busy, always juggling a demanding career and single parenthood. We told ourselves we were just being practical, spending time with the grandchildren who were accessible. But that was cowardice," my mother interjected. "We were taking the easy path instead of making effort for Emma. And somewhere along the way, easy became habit. Habit became preference. We stopped seeing how our choices were affecting Emma because we weren't looking. We were comfortable. Then Christmas happened," my father said, "and you forced us to look. That letter, those boundaries, they were painful. But Sarah, they were necessary. You held up a mirror we'd been avoiding for years." "Thank you," I said quietly, "for acknowledging that." My mother turned to Emma. I can't give you back the Christmases and birthdays and ordinary days we should have spent together. I can't undo the hurt we caused. But Emma, I promise you, for whatever time I have left, I'm going to be the grandmother you deserved all along. I'd like that, Emma said, and I heard maturity in her voice that hadn't been there a year ago. But Grandma, I need you to understand something. I'm not going to forget what happened. I'm going to forgive, maybe, eventually. But forgetting would mean pretending it didn't matter. And it did matter. You're right, my mother said. It mattered enormously. And you're wise not to forget. That pain you felt, it should remind us both, me to do better and you to expect better. The dinner ended with tentative plans for Thanksgiving. All of us together, Emma and me included from the start, seating arrangements discussed and confirmed. No surprises, no last-minute exclusions, no assumptions that anyone was disposable. Emma's senior year of high school brought college applications, scholarship interviews, and decisions about her future. She was accepted to 5 universities, including her top choice, CU Boulder's pre-med program. The education fund Rebecca had set up, combined with scholarships and my savings, meant Emma would graduate without debt. My parents contributed too, matching Rebecca's amount without being asked, a gesture of support that came with no strings or expectations. In May, at Emma's high school graduation, my entire family was present. My parents, Rebecca's family, my Uncle Tom's family, all sitting together in the auditorium. When Emma walked across the stage to receive her diploma, the entire section erupted in cheers. My mother was crying, my father beaming with pride. Rebecca's kids were holding a sign they'd made, "Emma, we're proud of you." I watched my daughter, poised and confident, accepting her diploma and waving to her family, and I knew the boundaries I'd set had been worth every uncomfortable conversation, every difficult moment, every accusation of overreacting. Because Emma hadn't just survived the exclusion and favoritism, she'd learned that she deserved better, that someone would always stand up for her, that family love should never be conditional or comparative. At the graduation party we hosted at our house afterward, my mother pulled me aside. "I'll never fully understand what it cost you to set those boundaries," she said quietly, "to risk the whole family relationship to protect Emma. But Sarah, I'm grateful, because I would have lost her entirely if you hadn't forced me to see what I was doing. You didn't lose her," I corrected. "You chose to keep her by changing. That was your choice, Mom. You could have stayed defensive and angry. You chose to do the work instead." "I almost didn't," my mother admitted. "I was so angry at first. That letter, those boundaries, they felt like attacks. It took Rebecca months of talking to me and watching Emma pull away before I understood you weren't punishing me. You were protecting her." "Exactly," I said. "I wasn't trying to destroy our relationship. I was trying to save Emma from more hurt. That was always the priority." My mother nodded, tears in her eyes. "You're a better mother than I was," she said. "You fought for your daughter when fighting meant standing against family. I don't know if I would have had that courage." "You do now," I said. "That's what matters." At the end of the party, as guests were leaving, Emma came to find me in the kitchen where I was starting to clean up. "Mom," she said, wrapping me in a hug. "Thank you." "For what?" I asked, though I knew. "For last Christmas," she said. "For the letter, for the boundaries, for not backing down when everyone was mad at you. I know it was hard. I know you lost relationships for a while, but you showed me I was worth protecting. You are worth protecting," I said firmly. "Always. And Emma, I need you to know something. Those boundaries weren't just about punishing your grandparents. They were about teaching you that you deserve respect, inclusion, love without conditions. That's the lesson I needed you to learn more than I needed a peaceful family." "I learned it," Emma said. "And Mom, I'm going to carry that with me. To college, to medical school hopefully, to my whole life. I'm never going to settle for relationships where I'm an afterthought. I'm never going to accept being treated as less than. because you showed me what it looks like to stand up for yourself." "That's all I ever wanted," I said, crying now too, "for you to know your worth." That night, after everyone had left and the house was quiet, I found the letter I'd written and delivered to my parents that December morning. I'd kept a copy, tucked away in a file folder with all the documentation I'd compiled. I read it again, remembering the anger and determination I'd felt writing it, the certainty that protecting Emma mattered more than keeping peace. I didn't regret a word. The boundaries had worked not because they'd punished my parents, though they had, but because they'd created space for real change. My parents had to decide whether access to Emma was worth examining their own behavior. They'd chosen to do the work, however imperfectly, however belatedly. And Emma had learned the most important lesson I could teach her. That love should never require diminishing yourself. That family should add to your life, not subtract from it. That sometimes protecting yourself means setting boundaries even when it's hard, even when people are angry, even when you're accused of overreacting. In August, we moved Emma into her dorm at CU Boulder. My parents came to help, carrying boxes and setting up her room, asking where she wanted furniture arranged, and making sure she had everything she needed. It was mundane, ordinary, exactly the kind of grandparent support Emma should have had all along. As we were leaving, my mother hugged Emma tightly. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "And Emma, I'm grateful I get to know you now, even if I missed too many years." "You didn't miss them," Emma corrected gently. "They happened. But we have New Year's now. Let's make those count." Driving home from Boulder, I felt the weight of the past year lifting. The Christmas that had shattered our family had also rebuilt it, stronger and healthier than before. My daughter knew her worth. My parents had learned the cost of taking people for granted. My sister had examined her own complicity and chosen differently. And I had proven to myself that protecting my child mattered more than protecting family peace. That night, I wrote in the journal I'd kept since Emma was born, recording milestones and memories. "Today we moved Emma to college," I wrote. "A year and a half ago, my family sent her home alone on Christmas. Today they helped move her into her future. The boundary I set, the letter I wrote, the consequences I enforced, they all led here. To a family that had to break to rebuild. To a daughter who knows she deserves better. To grandparents who learned that love requires effort and attention and choosing people even when it's inconvenient. I don't regret the conflict. I don't regret the difficult months. I don't regret standing up to my family, because Emma is worth fighting for, and she knows it now. She knows that someone will always stand up for her, always protect her, always choose her over comfortable silence. That's the gift I gave her last Christmas, wrapped in a letter and delivered with boundaries. The gift of knowing her worth. The gift of a mother who would risk everything to protect her. The gift of family who learned, however painfully, that love is a verb. And I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. The end.